So, welcome to part 3, and I think in part 4 I'm going to start having a look at the actual engine itself, because I've done the diagnostic codes and there is about 7 to 16 errors, but apparently those errors can easily happen if the battery goes flat or something like that. So I've cleared the errors, tried starting the engine. No more error codes have come up. I'm assuming the crank sensor is possibly okay, because when I was cranking it over it did read 176 RPM, so hopefully that's hopefully the crank sensor is working. I've cleaned all the fuses, both under the bonnet and on the BSI inside. I've taken every fuse out, cleaned them with a Dremel, put them back in, tested them. So I don't think there's any fuses. The spark plugs have come out wet, so clearly there's petrol being put into the engine. And I've done a test obviously with the little neon lights, and they've all been flashing away quite happily. Done a fuel pressure test and I was getting about 70 psi. I'm not actually sure what the correct psi is, but 70 psi presumably is quite high. It's half the gauge, so I reckon there is fuel getting in there. And then finally, obviously, I checked the oil just in case there might have been some debris hiding in the sump. See if there was. A couple of tiny little bits of metal, but nothing spectacular. So I reckon it's going to have to be the engine has possibly slipped. So I think in part 4 I'll take the top off the engine and see if it's physically slightly off, because that might be enough to stop it firing. If anyone else has any other suggestions, definitely open to ideas, but I think for part 4 that's what I'll start with, and see what turns up when we actually start checking the chain and the timing. So yeah, so I hope you enjoy this one. This is the part 3 one, and then I'll crack on now with part 4. Thank you. Getting the Peugeot out of economy mode for about 3 minutes. I just found it might be useful to demonstrate that when the vehicle's in economy mode you can't use anything electrical really, and you can bypass this and get about 4 minutes of use if you disconnect the battery for about 2 minutes. And I was going to demonstrate that by showing you the roof coming down. Unfortunately, the car's decided to give me another issue, and that is the roof won't come down and it will just click a relay in the boot. But here is evidence that the day before the roof did come down. But now I just get a clicking of a relay. But there we go. With the roof not coming down, I thought I'd best do a quick battery health check. So there are mixed views on these as to how accurate these truly are, but either way we'll run it as we've got it. And the battery is CCA 525. So I'll put those details in. It won't do 525, but I'll put it at 520, and we're getting 495, so that's actually pretty good. And the top LED is lighting to say the battery's okay, and we've also got 12.67 volts, so I think the battery seems to be fine. So on to the diagnostics. So I've had this OBDII reader for quite a while now, many years. It is one of those cheap ones that you can get on eBay, and at the time I think it was about £50, so I won't say any more than that. But it does read the codes and has actually been quite useful over the years. So what have we got here? We've put the details in now. I'll just go and pop the ignition on to give the reader some power. So it's just going to initiate the tester, search for the interface, and establish communication. And there we go. So I'll go to the error codes on the top left over there, and we have an abundance of codes, probably every code it could have produced. Now apparently these codes can be somewhat inaccurate if the battery's gone low or been flat or anything like that, so I've been advised to just clear these and start again. But I'll put them here just in case anybody recognises anything and might know a lot more than I do. But for the moment I've recorded them, and I'll just erase this now, like so. Now apparently if I try and start the engine and there's some more errors, they may come up. So that's what I'll do, is so that's it, all the codes are gone now, but at least we do have a record of them. So I now pop over into the driver's seat and we start trying to turn the engine and see if we get any activity on this reader. You can go into like a live mode. Like I said, I'm no expert on this software at all, so I can only do sort of basic things. So I'm going to go through these one by one, more for the case that hopefully somebody watching this might actually say, there's your problem straight away. I mean, obviously some of them seem to be quite obvious, like coolant temperature, 9 degrees. But we have got engine speed. Now, I'm hoping that the engine speed would indicate if the crank sensor was working correctly. So we'll go on to that now and then turn the engine over, and I do get an RPM of 200. Actually, no, I get an RPM of 176. Obviously no vehicle speed there. Like I say, really you do need to be trained in the complete in-depth use of this equipment, rather than just sort of blagging your way through like I am. That's the accelerator. I mean, some of it's quite obvious. But I'll go through to the end anyway. There might have been even more tests I could have perhaps done. But it seems to be... So fuel pressure, we'll crank the engine on that. So what are we getting? 1190. I'll do another fuel pressure test later on as well. I mean, this really, I'm doing this more for any viewers that really know what they're doing and might actually better message me and give me some information. So anyway, so that's basically all I can do with that at this stage. I'll shut that off now. So it says no fault codes. So it is what it is. But anyway, we'll carry on now and we'll try some more obvious things. We'll see if we've actually got spark and fuel. So just before doing that, might be worth just cleaning all the fuse terminals and testing the fuses. So this is where a Dremel can be extremely handy. So what I'm going to do is take every single fuse out and clean every contact. Now I've also done this for the BSI control box inside the car, just to ensure no silly error is being caused by dirty fuses or a blown fuse for that matter. But I have gone through every single one now and all the fuses work and they're all clean. Obviously there are some relays as well behind that glove box in the passenger footwell. But I'll start with this area first. Now that looks all okay. So I think we'll go on to confirming now we have spark and fuel. Okay, so we'll disconnect all these. I'll speed most of this up because we've seen this all done in the previous video when the compression test was done. So at least the coil packs, or that one, seemed to come out a lot easier than it did before. So we can just whip these spark plugs out. Let's see how fast I can spin that. Pretty good there. That's pretty fast. And out comes the last one. Right. So my plan of action is I'm actually going to run these from the coil packs using some neon indicators. Now I've just sniffed that and it definitely smells of petrol. And that is definitely soaking wet with petrol. So clearly petrol is getting in there. Those spark plugs definitely don't look great. I think I will change those if we can get this engine running. But I think that does confirm we've got fuel. So we're now confirmed that we've definitely got spark. So I'll pop these, I think they're like neon indicators. Something that used to be used many years ago. So I'm going to just, I want to see this live to make sure these are all definitely working. So what I'll do then is I'll wrap a copper wire around the threaded part of the spark plugs and then earth that to the metal part of the body, and then hopefully we should have a bit of a disco light show, all going well. So I'll just put my little clip on there now and earth that wire, and then I'll turn the engine over. We should get the firing order as well, which should be 1342. So I'll slow this down now. 1342. Yep. So we've definitely got spark, and that all seems to be fine. So I think there's something physically wrong with the actual engine, I think. So onto this quick fuel pressure test. So I'll put a link in the description to this fuel pressure test kit. If I recall correctly, it was about £50 and you get them on Amazon. So anyway, so we'll take this cover off, remove the dust cap from the Schrader valve. It's the same as a car tyre. Make sure you don't lose the cap. Might be worth putting a bit of tissue down and making sure you've got a visor on. Because again, some petrol could splash out under pressure. So I've just put in the adapter on now. And then it's a quick release connector on the end of this. So it's just a case of pushing that on. And then putting the gauge up somewhere where you can read it. And then turn the ignition on. And what have we got? Just over 70 psi. What's that, about 5 bar, isn't it? And then I'll turn that off. And see what it drops to. I'll release it, and then I'll do it just one more time to make sure. So just over 70. So I'm thinking that's pretty good pressure. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly what the figure should be, but I would say we've got pressure in the fuel. So just checking in the Haynes manual, it does actually stipulate that the fuel pump regulated constant pressure should be 3.5 plus or minus 0.2 bars. So that's what Haynes says. Okay, so we can now get the cover back on, and I'm just going to check the oil for any debris as the final part of this video. So we'll just do a quick oil check now for any debris in the sump. So the idea of this is just to rule out any obvious issues that could be lurking inside the engine. Perhaps something's broken and it might just flow out with the oil. So it might be wise just to do this before I start actually having a look at the engine itself. So I think the engine takes 4.25 litres. Glog it away there. You can see why you need to undo the cap on the engine. Let the air in. There we go, that's better. So let's see how much oil we actually do get out. So 4.25, which includes the filter. We're a bit less than 4 litres. But anyway, right, let's have a look in this filter and see if we've got anything. Well, it looks pretty clear. I can hear one piece scratching around in there. See if we can find it. Very tiny piece of metal. So nothing obvious is showing as broken inside the engine, which is good. You've been watching OBDII Codes and more on the Peugeot 207. Thank you for watching, and hope this video helps you run diagnostic tests if ever you need to. This video was filmed and edited by me, Mark Savage, in April 2021. I can also be found on Instagram and Facebook under Coats and Gators.